approximately $5,000 more for a pre-buy of the chassis. We did get word today that New England Fire Equipment is willing to give us a trade-in of $9,000, which is basically a scrap price. So we'll have to discuss whether that would be the way to go, or take it to auction, or scrap it ourselves. As far as we know right now, it is still available. As this afternoon, it was still available. As Mark said, it will speed delivery. This would be available for delivery here mid-September. If we go out to bid and have one built, it'll be July of next year. And we do have a liability issue with the tower being out of service now, and deciding how to handle that in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Would anyone else like to be heard? Mr. Rando.
Ron Randall, 194 Boston Post Road, East Lyme. I spoke against this last week. I'm going to speak against it tonight, sir. I don't think we need it. We have one already in Niantic. We don't need another one. It's a lot of money. And I went through some of the appropriations for next year, and I see Flanders wants to spend $1,375,000 next year on a couple of vehicles. It's a lot of money. Maybe we need them next year for what is they're ordering. I don't know, but we don't need this ladder truck. Maybe we could put a new ladder on that truck, spend some money on it, maybe. I don't know. But I think that's an awful lot of money at a time when things are tough. Taxpayers are getting hit hard, and we still don't know what's going to happen in the state. I can tell you, spending all this money, you people are living in a wonder world, because I know and I see, and they come in and see me, and they're leaving this state in droves every day because they can't afford to live here. And if you think I'm kidding, just look around and see how many houses in this area from Old Lyme to New London. I took a ride around Sunday. There's over 1,500 houses for sale, and people can't sell them. And here we go, we're spending millions of dollars, and we don't, on this item we don't need. But we're not going to vote it down because it's packed anyway, which happens all the time. But I'm still going to get up and speak what I think and how I feel about it. I think about the taxpayers. I don't think about the fire department or the Board of Education. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rando. Would anyone else like to be heard? Yes, sir.
Jim Lewandowski, 15 Dean Road. I am the fire chief at Flanders Fire Department. Mr. Rando brings up a very good point. The numbers that are in the capital improvement plan for next year do indicate so. Unfortunately, those numbers, not sure where they came from, are almost twice as what we need. In fact, they probably are twice. So even though it shows $1.something million, we're only looking probably closer to $500,000, maybe $600,000. So he did bring up a very good point. That's what it does indicate, but we're not looking for that next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewandowski. Would anyone else like to be heard? Attorney Counsel, you have to read this resolution also.
I have somebody here, sir.
Mr. Schultz.
Evening, Mike Schultz, Lovers Lane, East Lyme. This, not against the truck, what I'm looking at is we got down here $1,000,003. And this vehicle that's in its construction phase at this point, is that still going to come in at $1,003,000, or is that going to come in at $1,001,000? And if that's true, then why are we going after $1,003,000, or is it going to be adjusted later on? I mean, if we approve this, is that what we're approving, $1,003,000, when we're going to spend possibly or bond up 1.1 as opposed to 1.3? I mean, through you, Mr. Moderator, I'd
Yeah.
like
Would
to
anyone
get
like
that
to answer
answered.
that question? Would anyone like to answer that question? Mr. First Selectman?
Yeah, come on up, Jim.
All right, Mr. Summers.
What would be, let me just get in there, right? Sure. So I can look at the phone for the people at home. Originally, it was $1,003,000 for the new truck. We are getting a demo truck with $150,000 of savings, thereabouts.
Approximately $158,000.
We're not going to spend more than we need. We can prove 103. We can reduce it by 100 and change tonight. We can change that bonding resolution if so be it as well. But either way, the money won't be spent because we just approve it. But then when the bill comes in for $150,000 less, that's what gets bonded. Okay. Do you have the exact figure? You might want to just put that on the record so that.
At the Board of Finance meeting, it was 1.42. 1.42. 1,420,000. I mean, 1.1, I'm sorry, 1.112.
1.100,000,100.
Yes. 43,000, so 42. 1.4, 1.1.
All right. Okay. We have any, can require an amendment if you don't need to do it. It will require an amendment, that's all we're going to amend.
We could do an amendment. You okay with reducing it to that figure?
If this demo gets taken before we get
Yeah, okay. The concern is the demo could be taken in the next couple hours. The demo could have, some other town could have had a meeting Friday and signed on the dotted line at 3 o'clock this afternoon. We'd like to approve 1.3. We're going after this 1.143 truck. And we're going to do that at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, if this passes tonight. Okay, but we don't want to go through the whole process again because we have a truck that's in dire shape, and we don't want to start this whole process going through the selectmen, finance, town meeting again 4 months from now if we approve 1.143 and the truck isn't available tomorrow morning when we sign on the dotted line. Okay, so we prefer to keep it at $1.3 million. Okay, and you have my word, my trust. Finance director, fire department, that we're trying to get this demo truck, and this is our objective. Okay.
You have any other questions, Mr. Schultz?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, just one. Regarding what Mr. Lewandowski said, if I pronounced that correctly, for 1993 and 1995 in the 5-year plan, Mr. Rando had indicated that there was $1.375 million slated for the 2016-17, and sounds like that's going down to around $5. But is it also necessary for that to come in 2016-17, or can that be pushed out to a couple more years? I mean, they're fairly, newer vessels.
Is that a
Then-
rhetorical question, or do you want someone to answer it?
Yeah, I'd like an answer to that if possible.
Would anyone like to answer that question?
I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you.
Mike, you bring up a good point. We're not through the capital improvement plan for next year yet. We're still on this year. It's something that depending on who's sitting in that office, we'll certainly sharpen pencils and figure out if we can spread these purchases, make one a used. We don't know yet. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but I can assure you when we get to next year's capital improvement plan, a lot of work will be done, as was with this year's.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Would anyone else like to be heard? Seeing no hands, then we will move the question. All those in favor of a resolution to consider and act upon a resolution entitled, Resolution Making an Appropriation in the amount of $1,300,000 for the acquisition of a town truck fire apparatus and authorizing the issuance of $1,300,000 bond of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowing for such purposes. Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed by saying nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it, the resolution carries. The next item on the agenda is item number 10. To consider and act upon a resolution entitled, Resolution Amending a Resolution Making an Appropriation in the amount of $715,000 for the planning and design, rehabilitation, and improvement of the tennis court facility, and authorizing the issuance of $715,000 bond of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowing for such purposes. Said resolution amendment increases the amount of the prior appropriation and bond authorization from $715,000 to $820,000. Is there a resolution?
So moved.
Mr. Wilson, is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Caputeri. Okay. Would anyone like to be heard?
This is a tough one. Because generally when we do these resolutions, when we have projects in town, when we go out and purchase something, we have a firm number. And in this particular case, 2 or 3 years ago, digging up the tennis facility, we didn't. We dug up the tennis facility that was there, and sure enough, there was debris underneath. There was swamp-like conditions, as was pointed out. We typically in this town don't appropriate money to go out and test the ground and dig up half of the thing and see what it's going to cost. We made a good educated guess. The folks that were in charge at the time made a good educated guess of what it would be to bring in this project. And they were $105,000 off. When they dug up the project, the tennis courts, there was an extensive amount of work that needed to go underneath the tennis courts to make the drainage work better, to make the ground solid. We are not voting tonight on the tennis court lights. What was already voted on 2 or 3 years ago on this project was a tennis court with fencing, with the nets, with the lines, with proper drainage underneath, and with lights and benches and all the things. We ran out of money on the project. So we did everything we could, and what's left is the lights. But the lights were already approved 2 or 3 years ago by selectmen, by finance, by a town meeting to put the lights in. So we're looking for $105,000 to finish our project for a world-class tennis facility at our high school. It's a facility that our tennis team uses and has priority on during the tennis season. But it's a facility that morning, noon, and night when there's lights, you'll see our citizens on, and a variety of citizens. It's typical in America for high schools or communities to have these. People get out. It's nice that we get away from our computers and off our couch, and we used our town facilities. This is what we're asking for tonight, $105,000 to finish a project that was started and that it ran into overruns.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Would anyone else like to be heard? Yes? Ma'am.
I'm Susan Walshack. I can't vote. I'm the boys' high school tennis coach, and I want to say that the lights You said it perfectly. We've all wanted lights on those tennis courts, not just for this project, but for many, many years. We have one set of tennis courts in this town. Waterford has several. Some people are leaving our community to use those lights, and those facilities aren't anywhere near our facility. We have a gorgeous new tennis court, to the point where we hosted our Eastern Connecticut Conference this year. Out of 15 schools, we had the boys come there and play their conference. Everyone was amazed by the level of our courts in our facility, and I'm sure they'll probably be returning to our facility now that they have seen it, even from out of town. We also could use the lights even during the tennis season. Just going into the conference, we may have had to move it again because we didn't have lights this year because it was going to get dark. So that would help for both the boys and girls tennis team and also training later. We have to split our practices because we can't practice at the same time because we have large tennis teams. We have 20 to 30 kids and only 6 courts. So we do split the time, so we do run into dark issues. So that's just the high school part. Now the community part. The community uses the courts not only after we get off the courts, but also in June when you guys have the courts all the time as well. So after 6 our practice, or 7 when our practice is done, you guys jump on the courts, March, April, May. And then June, July, August, September, October, and November, the whole community uses the courts. And now, as you know, the time gets shorter as we go. It gets dark. Those courts are still usable. The weather's still great. So people want to go out there and use those courts after work. I know I always wanted to, after 5, 6 o'clock, I wanted to go out on the courts. And I know everybody here does. I've had plenty of people begging for lights for many years. How come we don't have lights? Can we have lights? We want to have lights. They want to play tennis with their family. I'm talking kids from 3 years old all the way up to senior citizens are playing on those courts 7 days a week, and they want to continue to play when it gets darker and it's not great to see. They would be used. It would just be amazing if we can finish what we started. It is a state-of-the-art facility. It's beautiful back there. And you look at an aerial view of the high school, and it looks like a college campus. Everyone here should be proud, and everyone should be using that facility over there. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Welshock. Mr. First Selectman.
I hear and see a lot of pride. So thank you for coming tonight. I just wanted to point out, this is on the board, this is on the public school property. Board of Ed members are here tonight. Our new superintendent, Jeff Newton, is here, as he is everywhere. Dr. Tim Hagan and Maria. So, and I know there's some others sprinkled in there. I've gotten up and kind of led the charge, not the charge, but I've introduced the project on this evening and in other evenings. But they are here as well, and they're here to answer any questions as well. Should they come up? I didn't mean to step on your toes, and that's my apology to you.
Deb Lewandowski, 15 Dean Road. To you, Mr. Moderator, and to Mr. First Selectman, can it be put on the agenda that community hours be turned over to Parks and Recreation and we go back to what we used to do and do a tennis pass, which costs money, and then residents can use the courts, as well as it'll help organize the use of the courts and give everyone fair play.
I'm not sure it belongs in the resolution, but I think it's an interesting idea, and it's more of just a management idea and how that should work. And I'll be happy to talk to those. I don't know how it worked before. Okay, kind of new in the job still. I'd be very interested in hearing how it worked before, how it could work, and hearing from even the tennis community on how they'd like to share that. And if there's tennis passes that one has to purchase and it goes toward the paying of the electricity and all that, I'm a big fan of that, pay-as-you-go kind of thing. So it's something we should talk about as a management group among the department heads.
Thank you, Mr. First. Mr. Rando.
Need my name again?
We We know who you are, Ms. Randall.
That's good. I hope you never forget. I'm speaking to this because I spoke to it since it's been come to the boards. I spoke to this item when we had all the tennis people here at the meeting. And you know, I say a lot of things, and I do a lot of studying, and I know what I'm talking about. Maybe people don't like how I say it, but what I say is the truth. And I told the town of East Lyme and the Board of Education that they were going to have problems when they dug that tennis court up. And they didn't do anything about it. That land back there has been a swamp for years. When I was a kid, and when George Pappas bought it, nobody else wanted it, and the town bought it, and it's wet ever since. And that water run right underneath that tennis court. I recommend, I wasn't against building the tennis court. I said, move the tennis court to a new location. No, you did, you went and you dug it up and you found out what was in there. Tree stumps, water, mud, everything. And now the taxpayers are gotta pay $105,000 for these people's mistake because they don't listen to anybody. That's $105,000 of the hard-working people in this town. And I don't care what Waterford's got or anybody else. I've lived here all my life and I worry about East Lyme. And we can't afford to go blowing money like this because some people made a mistake. They didn't study it. And I told them what was going to happen. And they dug it up. Oh, we spent the money. Now we need $105,000. And when he says, believe a politician, well, I've been involved in politics almost all my life. And I don't believe any of them. And especially in this town, I don't, because I've been fighting for the taxpayers for a long time. And everything I've said has come true. I'm not blowing my own horn. I'm just telling you the truth. People here, I don't care who you are, you should vote this item down. And if they want lights, let the tennis people go out and collect money and put the lights in, not the taxpayers for somebody's mistake.
Thank you, Mr. Rando.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to be heard? You want to be heard? Ms. Welshaw?
Suzanne, I forgot to mention that regarding the tennis lights, even though maybe it said like you may not be a tennis person now, you could be a tennis person at any time in your life, and I think anyone in our community could get started at no matter whatever age. And I believe the lights would, everyone in this community would be able to use the lights. They use the track. We have lights on the track so people can get fit and have exercise after work. We should have lights on the tennis court so people can get fit and have exercise after work. It's good for our children. It's good for us as adults. It's an ageless sport, and having the lights out there would really get a lot of our community out there. And I consider it fun fitness. And you can be any level. You don't have to be a fantastic tennis player. I mean, our town has New England ranked tennis players, and it's partly because we've had a beautiful courts, and we've had a town that has supported the kids in our school in those programs. I just want to mention Sarianj Patel. I have to say him. He was a big hit in our community for the past 18 years. He just graduated. He won the Eastern, actually the state class tournament. He is considered by Norwich Bulletin, will be writing a story on him, as the player of the year. He came out of East Lyme High School, and he's the first one in over 10 plus years that has won that title, the class title, over Santoro. And he went on to the state open. This kid came from East Lyme, Connecticut, competing against the kids that are on the border of New York that have these big, high-end, huge double L schools. He was better than all them, and we've produced a lot of excellent tennis players in our past that have gone on to collegiate colleges, all of them. We've had a number of valedictorians that were tennis players. It just states that the type of athletes that are coming out of our facility are well getting educated, and I believe are coming back to our community and giving back. And they would appreciate being able to be on those courts more, along with their moms and dads.
Thank you, Ms. Wilshire. Would anyone else like to be heard? Mr. Schultz?
Mike Schultz, Lovers Lane, East Lyme. All these things are wonderful that our tennis people have been addressing. And I think that what we have to look at, too, a bit is that where you stand on these issues oftentimes is determined by where you sit in life. And as us folks get older, we don't go down to the tennis court. We got to exercise in our backyards or go on walking on the street. I don't think that should be the reason that we need those tennis courts or the lighting in the tennis court. If the lighting in the tennis court is necessary for our educational of the kids and for their educating of the whole body, as they oftentimes state, well then fine. And then I guess we need to come up with the extra money to do that. But why don't we come up with some other sources of money? Why not make some contributions for the use of the tennis courts? I think that the older folks that we have in town here, I mean, we got half of Fairfield County that's moved here. These are people that are quite wealthy. I'm not sure that they're using the tennis court because they're older, but maybe they are. And I also look at door-to-door solicitation. I don't mind having kids come up to my door, knock on it, show me a little pamphlet or something, and ask for $20. Maybe I'll give them more than that. Maybe those that actually are using the tennis courts will give them a lot more than that in contribution. And so I don't think we always have to look at bonding. And the other part is, what about Salem? Last I knew, Salem hasn't contributed one dime to the sports facility that we have at the school. Swimming pool, athletic complex, now the tennis courts. What do we need them for? Either pay up or get out.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Would anyone else like to be heard? Seeing no hands, I will move the question. If I can find it. To consider and act upon a resolution entitled Resolution Amending a Resolution Making an Appropriation in the Amount of $715,000 for the planning, design, rehabilitation, and improvement of the tennis court facility, and authorizing the issuance of $715,000 bond of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowing for such purposes. Said resolution amendment increases the amount of the prior appropriation and bond authorization from $715,000 to $820,000. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed by saying nay.
No.
The ayes have it. The resolution carries. The next item on the agenda is number 11, to approve a special appropriation of $329,800 from the CNRE for various projects consistent with the town improvement plan. CAD software and survey equipment, $4,000. Town project roofs, $50,000. HVAC replacement townwide, $37,000. Sidewalk repair townwide, $35,000. Town projects various, $50,000. Equipment for acquisition of police vehicles, $40,000. Revaluation, $113,800 for a total of $329,800. Is there a resolution?
So moved.